Spring is slowly approaching and I could not be more excited about it. Winter in Texas is so gray and boring and uninspiring, and I haven't admittedly done a lot of creative projects because I just haven't felt inspired. Motivation to follow through with them has been at an all-time low, so I'm very excited for the change in season. It's getting warmer, it's getting a little bit more vibrant, and it is just really recharging my creativity. Today, I just want to chit chat about some things that I've been getting into creatively, things that I'm excited to use again. You can think of this as like a favorites video for spring, but instead of trying to sell you on products, we're just here to chit chat and have some fun. So the last time I did one of these videos, I really talked about how I'm greatly inspired by everything fantasy, and that has absolutely not changed. Fantasy is just a part of my creative soul. But as the weather starts to warm up, I always get this rose-tinted glasses for the vintage styling, very 1960s. I am a big lover of 1960s fashion and styling, and I feel like there's been this big movement in the fashion sphere that's really geared towards that. And seeing those things have made me really interested in watching French New Wave films again. I've been trying to work through a catalog of French New Wave films. There's just a lot of film history built into them and how they really changed how stories are written for films and also how films are made. And for those reasons, I just find those films really inspiring. And also they were made during the 60s, which is one of my favorite eras for fashion. So I've been trying to work through my catalog saved, and I watched Jules et Jim, and forgive my accent, and I have to say, I did not like this film. I appreciate the history behind it and how it was made towards the beginning of this era of filmmaking, but story-wise, it was the most frustrating thing to get through. At first, I was super into it because it seemed like one of those anti-narrative films, which I'm super into and I want to make a video about in the near future. But then as the plot progressed, it kind of moved away from that feeling, and the love interest, I believe her name is Catherine, if I'm remembering correctly, I could not stand this woman. She was the most frustrating character ever, and I was just wanting these two men to just leave her in the dust and just go live on their own. And the ending just, I won't spoil it in case you haven't seen it. It's a very niche film, but if you're into film history, I guess go watch it. It's not a French New Wave film I would personally recommend. It just really made me angry. So I'm kind of on a revenge watch. Some of the films that I have on my watch list are Shoot the Piano Player, A Woman is a Woman, and Perrault Le Fou. But those are some of the ones that I'm really wanting to watch this season. Also in the realm of this kind of vintage feel is I'm really excited to start using my film cameras again. I have two film cameras that I have already started using, and getting to use them has just reminded me of how much I love film, even though the last time I got to do it was very frustrating and it kind of put me off of film for a little bit. So it feels really nice to kind of fall in love with it again after it made me so mad, but that's just kind of the film experience. Sometimes things turn out really great and sometimes they don't. The first camera that I want to talk about is my Polaroid Sun. This is a camera from, I believe, the 80s, so it's a little bit old. My parents found it in an antique shop and it still works. The flash is broken, but I've had no problem taking photos on it. I love this camera because it does give me that kind of instant gratification. I went to a birthday party for my friend's daughter. It was her first birthday, and during the cake smash, I took a Polaroid, which was really fun. It's always interesting to whip out film cameras, especially big chunky ones, when everybody else is taking photos on their phones. I had a moment where I felt like this was unnecessary, but after taking the photo and having it develop, and it was a little blurry because she was moving and that's just the nature of the photo, it was really nice to be able to physically give that to my friend. I hope that she keeps it and maybe puts it in a baby book or in an album later down the line as her daughter gets older, which I'm not going to share the photo because I want to respect their privacy. But even though the photo didn't exactly turn out as I would have liked, it was also just, I think it perfectly captured the moment. I was a little disappointed with how the Polaroid developed because it had a little bit of motion blur because they were moving. It was during a cake smash. And at first I was a little hesitant to gift it. I kind of thought like, well, maybe I'll keep this for myself and keep it in my memory box and put it in an album. But I really wanted to follow through with the intention of taking a Polaroid and gifting it to my friend and her husband because I'm someone who is very into physical media. And while everybody else had their phones capturing the moment, I know that those are going to live in a camera roll that they may not visit as frequently, but having a physical picture that you can include in a book and hold in your hand, I feel like is more intentional and is more likely to be revisited. So I am glad that I gave it to them, and I do hope that they appreciate the thought and the outcome, even though it wasn't what I had hoped for. But in the little bit of time that I had waiting for the Polaroid to fully develop before I had the courage to actually gift it, I had a thought of, I guess, grieving and getting to acceptance of that's just how these cameras work. And it kind of made me feel connected to people who only had access to film cameras when digital wasn't a thing, and how they probably took birthday photos on Polaroids and they didn't turn out perfectly, but they probably don't think anything about it. That's one camera that I'm excited to use. I finally used up my first roll of film for it. I did photos last year, and because Polaroid film is a bit more expensive than 35mm, it's been something that I've been using preciously. So I'm excited to get another cartridge to use. The next film camera that I'm very excited to use is one that my family found up in the attic, and it is this Freedom 101. I don't think I've shared this camera on my channel before, but it's an old Minolta, and it's a family camera that has now been passed to me. I'm still learning how to use this camera. Right now it has a expired roll inside. I have some things going on today that I'm going to take this to. I'm going to a grand opening for a bridal boutique, and then also it's Sam's birthday celebration. So I don't have any expectations for the photos on this. They're just something that if they turn out, they turn out, and if they don't, they don't. I've been burned by expired film before, and this is a automatic point and shoot, so I have no idea what's going on in the film inside, but there's a good bit left. So I'm very excited to use this. I'm also going to use a newer Fuji film roll on this for a very special project that will be coming later this spring. But yeah, I'm very excited to use this camera. I love how it feels. I love how it looks. I'm still learning how to use it. I have no idea how to turn the flash off. I don't know if that's an option. So again, very new to me, but very excited to use. Another piece of inspiration for me lately is finding beauty in imperfection. I am a photographer who does not have the skill of editing flyaway hairs or wrinkles in clothing and like using the warp tool to change the motion of clothing. It's just something that I never felt the need to work on for my particular style, but the photographers who do it, I think, do a wonderful job. I do draw the line at body modification though, but as far as like hair volume and clothes, I think that's fine for photographers who want to do it. I just don't find it necessary for the work that I do. And lately I've been noticing a trend, especially on the runway. This was kind of brought to my attention, and it kind of sparked this thinking point of there were a lot of models sent down the runway who had this messy, frizzy hair, but styled in buns with beautiful hairpins, and it was beautiful. I want to wear my hair that way. It looks beautiful and kind of like an effortless chic to it, and made me think about the photos that I've been very inspired by and how they have a bit more of a documentary style to them. They're just done in a way that's more effortless and authentic. Not that there's anything wrong with the overly polished studio photos. I think that there's a time and place for both styles. It's just me in particular right now I've just felt very inspired by these more candid, authentic photos that you can still pose and use your composition. They don't have to be so candid. There's just something about kind of stripping away the over editing and just focusing on the styling, the composition, things that are done as the photo is taken instead of on the back end, that I think is just so beautiful. And even doing this for digital work, just kind of focusing more on the color grading and less on the little imperfections that I think are the things that make us human and the things that don't need to be perfect, because there's beauty in imperfection. And I just really want to continue to kind of follow this thread of creativity and creative thinking as I take photos in the upcoming year and as time goes on. So now we're gonna get into things that aren't really tied to my photo work, but are still part of me creatively. I have recently taken up the hobby of knitting. I think hobbies are really important in terms of continuing to use your creative muscles and also having creative aspects that are purely for your own and not being monetized. So one that I've recently taken up is knitting. I have made quite a few projects that I would like to share with you. I'll show you my first scarf, which I call my ugly as sin scarf because it went totally awry. I started with this much and ended with it being this wide. So it was a learning experience, but I practiced lots of different stitches. I practiced stockinette and drop stitch and the garter stitch and increasing, because I've figured out what went awry here and just continued on. But this is my first scarf. It's ugly as sin. My second scarf was a Valentine's present for Sam. It is this red scarf, very wide. I didn't mean to make it this wide, but I love it. And it's not perfect, it has imperfections, but every section is a drop stitch with garter stitch and just a repeating pattern. He loves it. I'm very proud of it. I also made little hair ribbons, these fingerless gloves out of this butter yellow yarn. And then I'm currently working on making a bonnet because I want nothing more than to look like a little babushka. So those are what I've been working on. It's been really fun. My friend Sydney and I, we go to a library and sit in a room with a bunch of other fiber artists every once in a while, and it's just a fun, free activity that you can do to get out of the house. And it's been very therapeutic to have a calming activity that I can easily take on the go. It's very repetitive, and as someone who's neurodivergent, it's really nice to have a fidget with my hands that I get something in the end. The last thing that I want to share is kind of looping back to fantasy and how I just am always inspired by fantasy, and it's just in my creative soul. I made a very unnecessary purchase. This is my first armor piece. It is a gorget. It is stainless steel and very heavy, and I kind of feel like I'm being choked in it, so as someone who doesn't wear armor on a normal basis, I need to get used to it. But I did buy this for the Ren Fair and also for photo shoots and future activities. But yeah, I got my first armor piece, and I feel so cool owning this. I've learned a lot about armor maintenance because that did not occur to me until I purchased this, and even very, very thorough care instructions. I have some self-portrait plans that include this. I'm forever just inspired by all things fantasy and Lord of the Rings and all of that good jazz. But that is everything that I've been inspired by lately. I just feel so invigorated and excited for the spring and all the creative projects that I have planned. That is all the time that I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you stuck around to the end, I hope that you enjoyed. I hope that you like these casual little chit-chat talks. It's just something to throw on and keep you company. But I hope you have a super lovely day. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see more of my face, you can subscribe, leave a like, all the good YouTube jazz, and I will see you next time. Bye!